All right. So with that, Pastor Stanley, I said at the end of the previous episode and now at the beginning of this episode, what measures does one take to overcome limiting beliefs? Take it away, sir.
The first thing is, value being honest with yourself.
Brace for a mild impact, but yet remain calm. Feel this intense, subtle, powerful quiet storm. No need for you to close the windows or lock your doors. See, when I'm done, the next voice you'll hear is Baraka born. So view it on your tablet or your cell phone. Slightly increase the volume that's on your headphones. You own the Ava Melrose. Or trying to help a brother stay on track. Be like, I've been working on the railroad. So let's go. Don't touch the pause button and let it play today. We tackling all subjects. Cause the same way they say faith I once read. If it ain't got action with it, that same faith's dead. 4K, lights, cameras, it's all action. You got questions, you about to get all answers. We win, we don't lose, and L's a stepping stone. And the steps of a good man is ordered. So let's start an episode. And let the words of our mouth be acceptable. Meditation of the heart and motivation like, hey yo bro, you got that. Right after your office hours, we can sit and talk about it right here. And be about it right now. Be about it process. Be about it lifestyle. Be about it man up. Be about it mindset. Be about it that's us. Be about it podcast. Yeah. Be about it podcast. Yeah. Be about it podcast.
All right, here we are again. This is part 3 of this episode of this conversation. And we're talking about eliminating limiting beliefs. Part 1 was kind of the groundwork that we laid in order to introduce Pastor Dr. Stanley Ferrell to you. Part 2 is defining what limiting beliefs is. And part 3 is going to be how you actually overcome these limiting beliefs. I think Dr. Stanley has done a great job laying it all out for you, but now we're going to wrap it up with a pretty bow. And again, if this is something that you believe, if you're a wife out there, if you're a woman who has become frustrated with seeing that your husband has limited himself for whatever reason, you know that there's something in him, but you saw potential in him before you got married. And now that you're married, you've become frustrated with not seeing the fruit of what you believe was in him from the very beginning. You might want to share this particular episode with him. In fact, share the whole series with him. But what I would love for you to do is share a comment. We want to know what you're thinking. We want to know what it is that was said that has sparked interest in you. And we want, because we're growing as well. I mean, yes, there are things that we already know, things that we know well, but there are things that we need to know better. There's maybe some corrections that we need to make. So we want to hear from you. Leave a comment, and by all means, share the link. And the reason I keep asking you to share it is because our mission here is to motivate and to activate men of God to become all that he was created to be. All right. So with that, Pastor Stanley, I said at the end of the previous episode and now at the beginning of this episode, what measures does one take to overcome limiting beliefs? Take it away, sir.
The first thing is, value being honest with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to value the concept of being honest with yourself. Once you settle that, then you've got to. Then that gives you the courage and the confidence to do this next step is take measure to address yourself. Address what you believe, area by area, because, you cannot change stuff you won't confront. And a lot of time it's the things that we won't confront about ourselves that's really keeping us in the dark when it comes to our success, our happiness in our marriage relationship, and we want to think it's another person. It is a person and it's in a person, but that person is you.
Come on.
And so we've got to be man enough and woman enough to confront our beliefs and say, whether we're talking about money, whether we're talking about marriage, we're talking about health, we're talking about sex, we're talking about career, ministry, church, relationship with God, whatever. What do I believe? Mm-hmm. Where did I get it from? Why I believe it. Be true.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Prove to yourself why you believe it to be true. You see, and we don't like to do that, and we've got to deal with, Abraham was a good example to me because Abraham was failing in being who God created him to be. And look, you and I look at it, look at the story like, Well, he was a rich man, yeah, but in God's eye, he was failing.
Yeah.
And he knew he was failing. He came to a point of frustration. So for the first 75 years of his life, as far as the kingdom of God's plan for Abraham's life, he was not succeeding in that. He was a worshiper, which means he went to the temple, the tabernacle, as we say, he's a churchgoer, and he would be the modern day saved brother of failing.
Wow.
Because he was Abraham living as Abram. His internal was Abram, but God had created him to be Abraham. And so God had to get Abraham to confront himself, by counting the sand, counting the stars, and God says, so shall your seed be. See, Abraham didn't believe that. See, his limiting belief, his beliefs of limits based upon he was rooted in how he was raised. And so Abraham had to do several things. We find in Genesis 12, if somebody want to reference that, go back and look at it in Genesis 12. It says, the word of the Lord came to Abraham. Abraham had to, let me, can I read it?
Sure. Yes, go ahead. We want to dive into it. Let's give them all the tools.
I got some here too. Let me, what I do with that? Because I
the
want to
reason
get it
we
correctly
keep,
because, and this is what we all have to do. Abraham did something we all have to do.
Right. Well, while you're looking for that, I want to say this.
Yeah.
I think that the reason we keep referencing the Bible, you guys, is because for us, the Bible is the blueprint of our lives. The Bible lays out for us what it is that we are to do, how we are to do it. And it gives us perfect examples. And Abraham, for the purpose of this particular episode, is a great example of how to overcome. So go ahead, proceed.
Yeah. So that's four categories of beliefs that every person got to deal with. And we find it in Genesis chapter 12, Abraham. That if you follow this process of addressing and confronting, man, it'll make major changes. But it takes courage to do this because our beliefs have generational impact.
Yes.
And our beliefs comes from generations before us.
Ancestors.
And so it says in Genesis chapter 12, verse number 1 says, now the Lord said unto Abram, get thee out of your country and from your kindred and from your father's house onto a land I will show you. Now, that last phrase says, I will show you. The actual rendering of it is that I will show you my original will for you. See, God always wants us to see the original about ourselves and our lives. Then he says, verse number 2, he says, and I will, there's that phrase again, I will make of you a great nation. It's my original intent to make of you a great nation. Right? And then says, and I will is my original intent to bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. Verse 3, and I will bless them. It's my original intent to bless people through you. But I can't bless people through you until you let me bless you. And I can't bless you until you allow me to take you back to the original you.
Come on now.
The original. So I said, so I'm gonna need you to deal with four things. Let me finish reading verse number 3, then we'll deal with four things. It says, and I will bless them that bless you, and will curse them that curse you, and in thee shall all families of earth be blessed. So Abraham departed as the Lord has spoken unto him. Now, we look at this, we see, okay, Abraham left where he was at, which was Haran, to go to Canaan. Yes, but let me give you the practical breakdown of this, that you got to be willing to leave where you are to go where God wants you to go.
All right.
You've got to leave your current reality of beliefs in order to go where God has designed your life to go. So here's the first thing you got to do. So the first thing he said to him, he says, get thee out of your country. That means, Abraham, I need you to confront and to deal with your cultural beliefs.
Wow.
See, because we were created to live in kingdom culture, but then we got black culture, white culture, Hispanic, all these other cultures. He said, in order for you to get rid of, change the limits of your belief, whatever, you've got to deal with your cultural beliefs, where you get it from, where they come from. Number 2, he says, get from, he says, your kindred. And from thy kindred. That deals with, that reference, your personal beliefs. You've got to address the personal beliefs that you have. Then he says, number 3, and from your father's house. Now you got to deal with your generational beliefs.
Wow.
So that mama and them passed on to you.
You can say that again.
And then he said this, where you going, Abraham? Unto a land that I will show you.
Mm-hmm.
And now, number 4, you got to embrace God's beliefs about you.
All right.
So again, number 1, your question was again, what was the question again?
The question was what are the measures that one would take to overcome limiting beliefs?
Gotcha. I want to put it in that same context. So the measure you got to take practical is that you've got to be willing to confront your cultural beliefs, about what a man should be, what a woman should be, so you got to address all of that.
Got you. Yes.
Because this kind of stuff that gets in the way of God's plan for our lives, and where all these limits comes from.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's good.
Number 2, your personal beliefs, stuff that you picked up along the way from your personal contact, your kinfolks, your kindreds. That kindred is your friends and neighbors and all that, and the group you hang out with and all of that. Mm-hmm. Number 3, from your father's house, generational beliefs, stuff that was passed on down to you that you are aware of and that you're not aware of. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then you got to confront your God kind of belief. Mm-hmm. Do you really believe like God believes? Do you really think like God thinks? So I think when we go down this particular path, it's going to open up a whole Pandora box for sure. And but that's how we have that. I lost the word I was trying to think of, but that shift that we need, and because for us to evolve and develop, we got to have the courage to do this. And this is what Paul was talking about in Romans 12. That you got to lay things down and metamorphosize, transform, and it's internal. Mm-hmm. See? So I've got to challenge and change the current status of my soul, my mind, my heart, my soul, in regards to beliefs. Because remember, beliefs is the last part of the development of our inner man.
That's right.
That's the last part, because everything
system
gonna ride off of that. You know what I'm saying? So if you want to change what you thinking, what you doing, what you feeling, whatever, you've got to address the beliefs, because that's what's driving that. And
okay. Now,
so we got to do an honest assessment.
Let's do this. Now, What you just said, I completely understand, because I understand the 7 steps, I believe it is.
Right.
So let's address that. You said the beliefs is the last part, but what are the other parts? They don't know that.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So
when you're addressing your beliefs, you got to walk through this process. You got to deal with your will. Mm-hmm. That's the first level of our souls that's important, because that's the part that drives us. You got your will, you got your intellect. We have the thought, then we have the imagination, then we have the emotions, then we have the beliefs, and then we have the values. You see, so when I'm addressing my beliefs, I've got to engage my will. I've got to be willing to do that. I've got to be willing to submit my will to some stuff and information that I may not be submitted to right now. Mm-hmm. Because think about it. This conversation that Abraham is having with God, and after he had the conversation, it says, and he left as the Lord had told him, which means he submitted his will to this. He didn't sit and argue about it, and that wasn't, there was no dialogue on him in terms of debate and argument. He submitted his will to that. See, and that's what made it possible for him. Watch this, because his intellect. Watch this. His intellect, his thoughts, his imaginations, his emotions, his belief, and his value system was all based upon Abram. Mm-hmm. And Abram was not God's will for him.
Right.
So in order for him to embrace Abraham, the first thing he had to do was he had to submit his will to that of Abraham thinking. Mm-hmm. If he wasn't willing to become Abraham, everything else is off. Mm-hmm. But it says, when God spoke to him about being the father of nations, see, because he was complacent. Here's that word.
There's that word again.
He was complacent in being Abram. He was complacent in just having a son. So much so, listen to me. Here's the danger of complacency.
Come on now, I was just about to tell you. I was just about to ask you.
That complacency will convince you to sin to do right. Mm-hmm. That's how dangerous complacency is.
Different, but I like that.
Complacency will deceive you into thinking to pull off God's will, to do right, it's okay to cut the corners and twist stuff. And in other words, to sin. Because that's what he did. But when God promised you a son, you got a wife, so you're going to sleep with a handmaid to get God's will?
Right.
He was so stuck in being Abram, see? He couldn't believe God to be who he was. That means he was complacent.
Right.
And so God had to move him from complacency by challenging him, and challenge the way he thought. You see?
Yeah. Yes, he is.
You see what I'm saying? And but it don't stop the plan of God, but it proves you that complacency will kill our potential, our God-given potential, because we want to take our current and say, God used this. God said, no, we got to get rid of that.
Yeah.
I got to get rid of what you currently believe. You can't hold on to this belief and then grab that belief. No, you got to get rid of it. So here's the thing. I'm going to use this word, this very powerful word you've heard me use before, is that what I'm saying is this, that Abraham had to embrace the world of unbelieving.
That's right.
He had to be willing to unbelieve some stuff in order to believe what God needed him to believe. You can't believe on top of other beliefs. You've got to unbelieve first. So we've got to embrace this process that we don't hear much about, is that we got to learn how to unbelieve before we can become believe.
Exactly. Something I like. There's an analogy that you've given before, and I like this. You use the tape, for example. If you're putting some tape down on a dirty surface, the tape will lose its ability to adhere to the surface. So that unbelief is that's dirt. We need to wipe off that dirt first. Wipe off the dirt, and then we can attach the new belief.
And it would say, man, the tape ain't strong enough. There's no problem with the tape. You refuse to move the dirt. You refuse to be honest about it there. And we got to do that with ourselves, is that we got stuff in our lives that make, in our thinking, in our beliefs, that make the word of God not stick.
Yeah.
That make, who we are and become it, makes us inconsistent. See, we don't want to be inconsistent. We don't want to be spinning our wheels. You want to be consistent. So you, before you begin the journey, you've got to prepare your mind for the new journey. Don't just take the journey. Because you find yourself piling on stuff. People do the same thing with we don't know how to transition. We don't know how to undo before we do again.
Right.
And we end up doing on top of, and like, where that come from? You didn't deal with that. So it's the same way in our individual lives and in things that I believe that I've got to be willing to walk that way, because I can't get to the God beliefs until I deal with these other three categories of beliefs. And if I'm not willing to, watch this, any area, whether it be cultural, personal, or generational beliefs that I'm not willing to address, that's why you cannot have God's beliefs.
Exactly.
Which means you can't have the truth in that area. See, it's one thing to deem something to be true. It's another thing to have the truth.
Yes.
And people think the truth is what you deem true. No, the truth is truth, whether you deem it so or not. You know what I'm saying? And so, but I want the truth. I've got to be willing to say, you know what? I've got to stop believing that this particular thing is true, because it's really not the truth.
No. There's this saying that's been popularized in our culture lately, and that is, I'm coming into my truth, or live your truth, or live blah, 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 blah. And we understand that the truth, the Bible tells us that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the light. Okay, so that is the truth that Pastor is referring to. You got to come into that truth, because there's only one truth. There's the original truth.
Yeah.
And that's the one we have to continue to turn to seek after, to come into the understanding of, in order for us to overcome these limiting beliefs. And that's what we're trying to do today, y'all. We're trying to help you, give you the tools to overcome limiting beliefs. The tools that we pull from are the toolbox that we pull from is this book right here. Okay, it's the Holy Bible. It's the Bible, and that's what we continue to turn to. So, Pastor, real quick. Man, in my experience, and again, I've given my bits of my testimony on other episodes, but I have come to understand in my life through my experience that these limiting beliefs can also lead to death. Okay. Now, let me explain what I mean by death. I don't just mean physical death. I don't just mean the body itself, and they could, because I know the Bible tells us that the heart, promises deferred
Uh,
makes the heart sick, and that sickness could lead to death. But it also, what I'm referring to specifically is, if you're in a relationship, and this is what this podcast is about. It's about helping relationships. If you continue to walk down this path, let's say, for example, you do not do the things that Abraham did here, and you do the opposite of these things, or you continue to believe what you have been believing, you set into what I called complacency. In other words, you begin to believe that this is all that God has for you, and so you
right.
you don't do anything more. Okay, so that death that could set in is the death of your relationship,
Yeah.
the death of the divorce of your spouse, one from
Mm-hmm.
the other.
Mm-hmm.
You could come to the point to where and I'm talking to you, man,
Mm-hmm.
you could become so frustrated, or your wife could become so frustrated with what you have not yet become,
Right.
that you have not yet overcome your limiting belief, that she wants out. It's unfortunate that it comes to that. Sometimes we're able to, some folks are in a relationship where they actually get a chance to salvage that before it becomes before it leads to divorce. But it can lead to that, and we don't want that for you guys. We
Right.
want to help you overcome that. We want to help, because unfortunately, the statistic says that every 1 in 2, every
Yeah.
2 of 4, every 5 of 10 marriages, that's 50%, y'all, is what I'm trying to say,
Mm-hmm.
end in divorce. And we want to stop that. We want to counter that. We know that the enemy comes to steal, to kill, and to destroy. And if we don't learn how to overcome these limiting beliefs, then we have allowed the enemy. There's something I used to tell my daughters, and this is this. When Jesus resurrected from the cross, we became victorious. Okay, so our victory is in his overcoming death. But what we do is allow the enemy. What we do is, a lot of times, we give the enemy our success. We invite him into our situation. It's like saying, Mr. Devil, hey, how you doing? I know that I've been successful. I know that Jesus has already given me the victory, but I'm gonna give this to you because I don't want to do it. I don't want to deal with it. That is dumb. We don't give our victory over to the enemy, and we have to take back our victory by understanding how to overcome limiting beliefs, how to prevent the death, the demise, the divorce of our relationships. Anything you want to add to that, brother?
Man, yes. Let me point out what is not pointed out a lot in this particular text. Everybody, and myself included, but I've noticed this in past, that we put so much emphasis on Abraham.
Mm-hmm.
We fail to realize that Sarah matriculated at the same time with Abram. Because in chapter 17,
mm-hmm.
they were both there. In chapter 12, they were both there.
Mm-hmm.
And that Sarah was there with Abraham through his failure, whatever. So Sarah had to do the same thing that Abraham had to do. Why? Because she was living as Sarai when she was Sarah. She had the same problem Abraham had.
That's right.
She had to do the same thing that Abraham did. And then watch this. And so when they both, watch this, when they both mentally got it, that both of their names were changed according to their thinking.
That's good.
And then their lives respectively changed according to their thinking. See, it didn't happen for Abraham. It happened to this couple.
That's right.
And Abraham didn't leave her.
That's right.
And Sarah didn't leave him.
That's
because he wasn't. You know what I'm saying? Listen to me very careful. Whenever you got a couple, wherever one is, the other is there too in a different way. See, a lot of times we see the other person where they are, and we don't realize you've got to be in the same place where they are. Why? Because you chose them. Think about it. Wherever Eve was in her thinking regarding the tree, Adam was there in his thinking as well. Not just physically, he was in the same place she was mentally. He had to be in order for him to eat it. So my point is this, that whenever, if individuals married, I promise you, what's needed for one is needed for the other. And what people fail to realize is they think, I don't ran off and left them, and no, you there. And they think the breakup and leaving is a solution. That wasn't solution. The solution to Abraham's marital issue, because they had a marital issue, especially when he slept with that woman. What he did was Sarah told him to do.
Exactly. Right. I know.
You see what I'm saying? So why would she suggest that? I tell you, she's not thinking right either.
Right.
You know, and we could talk about he agreed on it, yeah, but she suggested, so that's equally.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So they both mentioned it in the wrong place.
Yes.
God, watch this, and God used his current relationship. 24 years later, they matriculated to a whole nother process and way of thinking together. Mm-hmm. They allowed God to work on themselves and their union. And then in chapter 17 of Genesis, it says they finally got it. It finally clicked. Mm-hmm. And then God said, now this time next year, the promise shall be fulfilled for you both.
See? Because they both hung in there. That's
what people don't understand when it comes to marriage. Now, if you're by yourself, one thing. But when you're in a marriage, you got to engage the other person. You don't leave the other person to fix it. Mm-mm. See? Now we've got to fix this. You know what I'm saying? And again, it's going to be different stuff in each one of them, but it's going to be the same thing. Because I promise you, wherever she's at, he's there too in a different way. Wherever he's at, she's there too in a different way. You know, but you got to see that, you know. So obviously, Sarah had to see that she was where Abraham was, and Abraham had to see that he was Sarah was. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Because if they saw that, well, that's you the one got the problem, whatever, then that would have been. And this is what we got to do, and this is what we got to embrace as couples and as individuals. So we got to embrace this process, 4-step process, as an individual, and if those that are married, you got to do the same thing as a couple.
Exactly.
You know, and you need a mentor or somebody can help you walk through that, whatever. So the solution is in the mutual change of beliefs together.
That's right.
You know, and that's the way God would do it. And that's what I recommend to people.
Excellent.
You know.
Well, man, we have finally gotten to the end of it. I have enjoyed this conversation. This has been amazing. Too. You've enjoyed it? Good. I'm glad.
Yes.
So, you know, as folks, as you've just heard, as you just wrapped it up, and I don't want to add anything to it, but as you know, in other words, it's something that we have to do as a couple. It's something that both of us should be actively involved in doing. The 4 steps that he laid out, that is how we're going to overcome limiting beliefs. And if you didn't get a chance to catch it all, go back and replay it. Go back and look at episode 1, episode 2. It's a 3-part series. You've got to see it. If you want to know more about Pastor Stanley, I got to tell you, I told you he's an author. These are some of the books that he's written. You can find them.
Appreciate you, brother.
At the website. Let me just name some of the few. This one is called Them. This one's called The Father's Heart. This one's called The Work. Some of the work that we just talked about. You got to put the work in order for you to become successful individually and as a couple. And by the way, I wanted to talk on that too. And this one's called Kingdom Leadership. So these can be found on the website. Do you want to mention how they can find some of those, some of your products, Pastor, how they can get a hold of it?
Yes, a website. We're working on our website. We're in the process right now to redoing that website.
Okay.
But it's TOEM Embassy .com. Mm-hmm. You can also, email us, at TOEM Embassy @gmail.com. We do also digital discipleship. You can catch us on YouTube. You can catch us on Facebook. Mm-hmm. I start back our live feed on Facebook. Yes, once a month. And
what's your handle there again? Let them know how they can find you on Facebook. What's the name?
On Facebook and YouTube under my name, Stanley Ferrell. And as it is on the screen there, and look us up and subscribe to our channel. And also reach out to it, and we do, like I say, digital partnership and discipleship. Mm-hmm. People that, all over the country, and all over the world, and right. So reach out to us and let us know how we can be a blessing to your relationship and your leadership as you journey in the kingdom of God.
That's right. And really quickly, before we wrap it up, I know we've already gone over, but I want to share something that we did not get a chance to touch on, that I wanted to touch on in the beginning of the conversation. And that is another one of those things that helped you become, how did I put that question? Qualifies you to speak on this particular topic, is you learn how to become successfully you.
Yes.
And that is another one of the things that you developed early in your ministry.
Yeah.
And also successfully us. And so maybe at some point we'll talk about that in another episode.
That'd be great. Yeah.
but we need to go through that and talk about
Let's
that.
do
I
it.
think that it will really help those individuals out there, marriages out there, to bring together the kind of, I guess, the holes that are in their relationship, in their individuality, and in their union.
Yeah.
All right.
Great. Let's do it.
All right, so we'll do that at some point in the future. I also want to let you all know that at some point too, I haven't talked to Pastor about this, but I think he'll be okay with it. We're going to put together some kind of a savings code that when you watch this particular podcast, you can actually type in this code and save a percentage of whatever it is that product that you might want to purchase on his website. Okay, so that'll be available to you in the coming future. Just be sure and check out his website. He's already told you what that is. If you forgot it, if you didn't catch it, please rewind the video and go back and get that. All right, so until the next time, again, if something that was shared today was a blessing to you, and you believe that your husband needs to see it, or your brother-in-law, or another man that in your life, or if you yourself as a woman need to see this video, please like, share, subscribe, and all the above, because we're not only trying to make this something that's available to us here in the States, but also across the world, because we want men everywhere to be about it. All right, until next video, we'll catch you next time. God bless.